Welcome to Walnut St Labs. DJ Jam. What was our speaker's name? Or her name is still this. Oh, Jesse's crib notes. So Michelle had animal trouble today. Her dog is in the ER. So we are not going to hear from Michelle McKeon, the founder of Autism Express. But you're going to hear from me a little bit more than normal, which is probably for your regulars. Probably sick of my voice, so I'll try to keep it short. We'll change our Meetup to start Roundup. We are putting a product that's homegrown from Walnut St Labs into our incubator. It's got traction and it's cool, so I'm going to tell a quick story about that. And then I'd like to do a round robin where we ask them, the startups and businesses in-house, to give an update. I know Monique is running Bondbids. I know Andrew and Patrick are running Formatic, and they've got traction. Hi Sid, hi Jeff, and Mary. We've got a bunch of businesses in here. Maybe everyone gets to talk to them now. So last week we had Bill Atley, the founder of iPipeline. He was pretty polished, but authentic, and it was one of those overnight successes. It took him 15 years to kind of force the industry to buckle to his will. That was refreshing to hear those stories when you realize the odds are against you, but if you have the fortitude or nausea medication, you can make it in 15 years. Isn't that inspiring? We also had Paul Kogan. He did Night Owls last week, and he talked about City CRM, which is not his, but he's done a lot of customizations around it. And so he talked about that. And next week we have Will Reynolds. Sandra, tell me about
Sierra Interactive.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Is he the founder?
He is.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool, and it's also on my birthday, so I'm excited.
Are you working that day?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be
okay. So Sierra Interactive is kind of a search firm, from what I understand, but it grew like a juggernaut. It's Philly-based, so that's a good story. We have this week Night Owls is just plain old Night Owls.
Yeah.
Refreshing.
Yeah, it's just a hang out. You don't have to be a developer. You can come and network, or just hang out with us, play games. Just kind of an open house style event. Sometimes we demo products, so look on our calendar for the upcoming demos.
All right. And we're working on a summer school mini boot camp thing that we're hope to start maybe not next week, but the week after, or maybe this Wednesday. Let's see. Thanks to our sponsors, Igniter TV. Thank you, Sean Dominski. Are we live streaming?
Yes.
Yes. Fox Rothschild, I2N, CCDC, Goshen Group, Hank Group, and Brennan's. So we are a community-driven organization. I will take a second and kind of, Mary and I spent a lot of time yesterday talking about who we are, and we're changing, like Madonna. Every couple of years we reinvent ourselves. And I mentioned a while ago that we brought 23 North in, so when I think about what we do here, we create innovation. So we do that for ourselves through our startups, and our startup model, or our incubator model, is to pair with an innovator or a subject matter expert. So for the innovator, it's usually technology. We bring biz dev and productization. For a subject matter expert, we might bring technology in addition to those things. But we also create innovation for the community, we think. Tell us if I'm wrong. But Startup Meetup brings people together. It shares ideas. It creates a network. Night Owl brings people together. We've had people find CTOs, developers, people are working on real projects. We did office hours, tech jobs. We're launching the mini makerspace ASAP. Our first thing is to build, do a boot camp where you walk out of here with a printed 3D printer from our 3D printer. And we've been doing the artist in residence. So that's us creating innovation in our community. And then we create innovation for our clients. So this is where I'm kind of merging 23 North and Walnut St Labs. So we've done work for Unisys, the Economic Development Council, pharmaceutical companies, big data companies, TV show, software company, events, and at the heart of it is an anti-disciplinary approach to creating solutions for all sorts of problems. So everyone says focus, focus, focus. Well, our focus is on this methodology for bringing solutions to bear in a quick manner, rapid productization. So if you have give me feedback, I would greatly appreciate it. What I'd like to do today is talk about one of our companies that we've been growing, or a product, not really a company yet. 10 minutes of that, and it really tells a story of how I got into this whole thing, and maybe turns you on to using the product if you haven't used it already, and then to talk to Monique and Formatic and by the Zip, what's your startup? MyZip. So, is that a deal? Anybody have any suggestions? Deal? Thank you. All right, so I don't know, 10 years ago, I was working in a cube, Love and Life, and I read an interview with the founder of Mint.com, Aaron Patzer, and he said, if you want to be an innovator, an entrepreneur, just look around you and look at what people are stumbling on and solve that problem. And literally the next second I lifted my head and I saw one of my coworkers, I was in an office of about 100 people, and she was asking my other coworker, hey, where's the menu folder? You know, folder with menus in it. Every office has one, and every home in America has a drawer in the kitchen with a bunch of menus, right? But that folder never has all of the menus. And if it does, you can't be sure that every menu is up to date. And if you're the restaurant owner, you have no idea if you're in that folder or not. So I wanted to do something. I created WestchesterMenu.com, and I created a complete directory of every restaurant in this town, because my office was a block away. And I designed it, I coded it, I thought about it, and then I launched it without one single menu. But I called it WestchesterMenu.com, and I thought, well, I've got to get the basics. I put the name of the company, a map, an address, and a phone number, something of value. And then I drove AdWords to it to create traffic. And then I really wasn't a comfortable salesperson at that point, and I made my first sales call Sunday night, left a message. Didn't get a response. Tried it again, then I realized I actually have to go out. So every lunch I would go out, and I had a notebook, and by that time I had some traffic, and to the pages without menus. And it took me a while, but I got one. And then I got two, and I was charging these restaurants a couple of $100 a year. This was 8 years ago, to host their menu on my site. And it was super clean, super organized, and it started to work like crazy. I got messages from consumers saying, thank God this existed, thank God you built this, because it simplifies the consumer experience. What's the consumer experience without that intermediary? 15 different sites. What I did is I took every menu and I made it look like every other menu. So there was complete ease with blowing through looking for things. And using my lunch, I started taking my lunch at 2 to 3 or 10 to 11, and my bosses were like, why are you going out? I would just sneak out and walk, and I got 45 restaurants out of the like 100 within that I could walk to on it. And I thought that was pretty cool. It wasn't great money, but it was a product. And then I got really bored with my job, and I moved to California, and I sold the whole thing as a package. And the first guy I met said, I like the site, but I did the math, and it looks like you've been working for like $4 an hour. And I was like, oh my God, how could I be so stupid? I'm working for $4 an hour. But that's what you do when you're creating a machine, right? Like, there's a lot of upfront costs, but you do it to get the machine. Right, so I sold it, I moved to California, then I moved back, and I rebought it because it's still ranked really high for a lot of restaurants, even above their own site. And through analytics, I knew I was getting more traffic to Tekka's page than Tekka got to their website because people like the simplicity of the intermediary. So we kind of rebuilt it. Through that experience, though, I learned from restaurant owners, I learned two things. That restaurant owners are difficult kind of people to work with because they're all over the place. They're friendly and good-natured, but to get them to meet you when they say they're going to meet you, that always doesn't happen. So I thought there's got to be a better way to serve local search and local discovery, but not do it through the restaurant owners. The other thing I learned is that restaurant owners hate Yelp and anything that allows people to write reviews. So I thought, okay, there's got to be an alternative way. And at that point, Yelp exploded. So much content. So if you're looking for the best pizza in Westchester, you got to read through 50 qualitative reviews. That's kind of overwhelming. So I created a site called Top Favorites, which was a way to crowdsource what people's favorites were. So if I asked everybody in this room to just say what their favorite pizza in Westchester was, I would take the votes and I would create a bar chart, a histogram, and you would know immediately upon looking at that. Dare I try to find it? Let's see. So this is live. If you logged in right now and voted, these numbers would change. We launched, and still we were working full time, the developers and me. And so we connected to a nonprofit thing called Bartender's Ball in Westchester, and there was a contest who's the best bartender. So we thought, well, it's not a perfect match, but we can use it, we can do it, we can be the voting platform. And at that point, we didn't use Facebook or Twitter login, and there was massive fraud. People were using like 7 different email addresses, and there were like reports of almost fighting. So in the middle of the contest, we had to enable Facebook login and Twitter login to kind of reduce fraud. But we took in like 4,000 or 5,000 votes, and then we did it the next year. So we've been able to get a lot of votes. And when you think about search now, there's so much content. We know actually from the server logs that people search what's the best X in some location, what's the best pizza in Westchester. So if you look at this, America's Pie is leading by a good margin. So if you were brand new to Westchester, that's a safe bet. If we had 9 million votes, you'd still be able to immediately see relative value. So in the blink of an eye versus Yelp. So I still believe in this model. It takes a bit of a street crew to go and do it. But the evolution went from Westchester Menu to Talk Favorites to Westchester.guru. And I often tell people the lab is what's in here, and it's what's in here, in this town. Westchester is a great little lab because it's got just enough people to be exciting, but not too many where you don't know what your impact would be. Maybe that doesn't work for all startups, but for my mindset, local startups, mobile apps, stuff for the consumer, you can test that in this environment and get feedback pretty quick. So we built this directory thinking if it works, we'd like to scale it. I know AOL purchased a company called Patch for a lot of money, and it totally sucks. Sorry if any of those people are here. But one thing that Patch does, that Yelp does, is it allows people to pay to be at the top. So on Yelp, you can actually go to Limoncello, and on Limoncello's page, you'll see an ad for Tekka. That's just so stupid in my head. I thought there's got to be a better way. Yellow Pages is gone, and Yellow Pages was kind of democratic. Everybody got in. So we built, Kyle actually walked around and talked to over 400 businesses personally. And every single one of them got their own page with their basic information. And we improved the geolocation. So Google tells you it's one place. We fixed it because Google is not in-house or in town. So we built an exhaustive database directory of businesses in Westchester. And, oh, I thought I was showing it. This is it. So it's got this map. Each different icon kind of is related to, I don't think it does, it's food. Well, it just launched, so we're,
There you are.
there, Tekka. So everybody gets a free listing. Now, this one, we only charge you if you want some upscale or higher level services, meaning two things. Video, if you pay us for the advanced or the second level of marketing, we'll go out and do a 30-second video every month. And that we know from doing marketing around here that short form video is crushing it across social. So we do that, but this is the format of our page. Founder Spotlight, we talk about the person behind the business because they always forget to do this. We do 5 must-knows, 5 key things that you as a consumer would want to know. Favorite picks, address, open hours, all sorts of stuff. And then up here, for an additional fee, we'll do Google Business View, and we collaborate with a Google vendor to do 360-degree shots of interiors. So from our page, you can actually go in there and explore the store. So there's nothing, as far as I know, that kind of competes with the quality of this. And it's gotten traction now that we're going to put it in the incubator, and we're going to allocate some different resources and expand to other markets, but we think it's a compelling local directory and news vehicle too. We've been doing short form news covering topics. We know that the Daily Local is kind of going down, and there's really nothing in its place. Vista Today is doing a good job on the news at the county level, but this one is specific to Westchester. So that's a little bit of a story on one product. Who's got questions about Westchester.guru? Kyle?
You doing anything to get this national or go to other
We're just
cities?
starting to think about doing the local towns, and we bought a domain called mylocal.guru, so we can tie them all together under one domain name. But when you think about, I know that you don't live in Westchester, so what's the closest town to where you live?
There's nothing close. I guess Reading is,
Uh-huh.
or Downingtown.
And so where do you go for media or for, is there anything like this that helps educate you on what's going on in those communities from like the street versus just Googling something?
We're not big restaurant goers or something, so it's,
What about shops? We have services, churches. We try to list every single thing going on.
it's,
Lynn?
Just wondering, I know Westchester's greatly influenced by Westchester University. Is there anything that you have done in terms of Westchester University and that student population that has keyed your particular work and development for this product?
We've had like 4 interns working on it.
Or is there anything about that population that might be turned into consumers for your or might?
Well, actually, at one point we thought we could try to turn the entire management over as a student project so that it's always run by university students. Then you could take that model and plop it anywhere where there's a university.
Because that's a good model, and universities really do generate a lot of interest.
Yeah, and it's simple enough that anybody can use it. So if you bring in new students to work on it, there can be a playbook and you can get right into it and it could generate revenue. And you should write that down. We should revisit that. Andrew?
What's interesting is I also had a startup in a very similar space. It wasn't specifically in a town. It was a company called Go Indie, and it evolved from a company called Skillet Menus, which is about a similar type of thing. It started out of Kutztown, and I was successful in selling that to a company in Honeybrook about 2 years ago. My knowledge hasn't done anything with it, but it had extraordinary amount of traffic. What may be interesting is a merging of the minds. So I'd love to introduce you and see maybe there's an opportunity to, kind of fold together some of the services and immediately have some coverage.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Kutztown's a very indie restaurant town, and I think they have something like 90% coverage all around there, and that's just, it's got something like 500 cities. Right,
Wow.
so there's some interesting opportunity if you want to scale that.
Yeah, so my first job out of college was a reporter at the Kennett paper, and I love local media. I love telling local stories. And one of the things that we stay true to is no one gets to pay to the top. So Tecca is way bigger than the little Italian place, iPasta. And I just think it's categorically wrong to allow someone to pay to squash at the top of Italian restaurants. The other thing is there's got to be good local content. What we find with every local business is they're really interesting, but they're not telling that story, right? So we go in there and we say, you're standing in front of the camera, and we ask questions that bring out the really unique part of that business. So I'll gladly take that intro.
Awesome.
Right.
Talk about your business model a little bit more. I know you're making money on some of the marketing aspects of it, but what's the revenue like?
So if you hang out here enough, you'll probably hear me say service work sucks. If you're doing, but at the same time, I told you that creating ad hoc innovation is awesome. But marketing services, custom website here, marketing plan over here, creating a product is key to scaling, right? So what we did here is we productized it into layers: free, a certain level of content, and then premium. So you have to. It's not going to scale like software, but it's like a freemium model, and the free gets the traffic, it gets the interest, and we charge businesses a recurring fee for us to generate that content on a regular basis. Now, the video content is great because it gets the most traction on social, but also because it ends up being a high-quality asset that the business can put wherever they want. So, and we do it at a price point that's pretty outrageous because what we've been doing here over the last year and a half is crushing video in shorter amount of time and productizing that. Video has often been pretty expensive. So it's a subscription model marketing service. Michael.
Yes. Michael Upman, an advisor to the lab. So I was wondering if there's a real social component to this plan. So would there be interest groups, places where people could discuss what they like about the different services or things like that, or even just to socialize around their favorite businesses?
Well, I thought about integrating Talk Favorites. I really want to stay away from reviews because once you start being the repository of angry people's comments, then it's a slippery slope into hell and abandonment. You know, you want to be an asset to the small businesses. You don't want to be a detriment. And there's some truculent stuff out there that just gets indexed and never goes away, and it just seems like small businesses have a hard enough time. We have thought about doing a forum or a Q&A, but that's non-specific to, you know, what happened when I went out to eat at the Social Lounge on Thursday. If we do that, we have to do it as an experiment. If it gets out of control or needs a lot of management, that's going to impact our business model. It really depends on how well we monetize and how well we productize, but I think that you would want to create a Q forum, some kind of community space where people could talk.
With WestchesterMenu.com, would you be comfortable saying like what you sold for, what you bought it back, and roughly how many you invested like the first go around?
Yeah, I sold it for $15,000. I bought it back a fraction of that. And up front, I don't know, I put in a lot of hours, but I was teaching myself design, coding, HTML. I didn't use a content management system. I hand coded the whole thing. It was a complete, insane approach, but back then, WordPress kind of sucked. So it was a good learning experience. It's a good learning experience to totally waste your time and wake up and say, why did I do that? And especially when you have a job that pays the bills in the background. I don't do that anymore.
This is the first I've heard of Westchester Guru or WestchesterMenu.com. How do you get noticed? What are you doing to, it's great that it's a great site, but people don't know that it exists.
So we also run I Love WC, which has 7,000, we just hit 7,000 fans over the weekend. That is specific to the borough, so we piggybacked off that. We're making that the funky celebrating what's quirky about Westchester. Guru is news and information. WestchesterMenu.com is menus and restaurant industry news or restaurant news. So that's done a pretty good job of getting the word out. The likes are growing, but what's really growing is the views. Our videos get viewed a lot.
Now, do you do anything like I was driving in and see that we have, Super Sunday coming up beginning of June, where I'm sure all the restaurants are going to have stuff out on the street. Are you doing anything involved with that to highlight to a broader audience that might not be as internet savvy or just focused on it?
Maybe.
That you exist?
Are we? Yeah.
I mean, we sponsored an event, we sponsored a Cinco de Mayo event, beginning of the month. We just, I think, do just a scholarship.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to keep all the revenue we make, in other words, until we hit another cash flow benchmark, and then we could explore more marketing. But we feel like the growth is good. In reality, and probably in the last 2 weeks, Well, the last month was really significant for us. So we're making plans on what to do next. But physical events, we're right here. It's a no-brainer. We just got to do it.
Because you've got that, you've got the bike races coming up in the summer,
Oh yes.
you know, where you bring in 15,000 people.
Yeah.
And they're walking up and down the street here.
Yeah.
We also go out of our way on Facebook to pretty much make an event for every single thing that's going on in town. So a lot of times people, when they search for Super Sunday or something like that, they actually find our event because we rank so high. If you look at our event section, I mean, it's insane, like the Super Sunday, Swing Summer Thursdays, all that stuff, because there aren't actual internet events for them, we're the ones that make them. So we get a lot of, interest where I've noticed a lot of people, they see our Super Sunday event, and then they're like, oh wow, who's Westchester Guru? And that's why our likes for Westchester Guru on Facebook have gone up like 5.6% every week, which is insane, because most of the time we see it's like 0.3% is the week over week, but we go about 5% every week. We've really been exploding, and I think part of that is just through the events that we've been, we sit down every month and we look at all the events coming up and we just make a listing for them. Photo, basic information, just like we do on the site. And that's how a lot of people have been finding us, because they search for that information. And then if we're the ones providing that content.
And they're searching through Facebook or Google?
Facebook, I mean, Facebook it's insane. People spend, 3.8 hours a day on their mobile phones, and some crazy high percentage of that's on Facebook.
I'll make this the last piece. Let's see if it plays. The volume kind of stinks, but this is the kind of video we do. We go out and we show what a business is doing. We interview the owner. So you get the taste of that. So who needs NBC and Comcast when you have a awesome video crew and Kyle and Jordan out walking around town? Ben?
I just wanted to say that I wish we had these numbers for our startup Meetup Facebook events, but for Swinging Summer Thursday on June 4th, we have 1.2K signed up through our Facebook event.
Yeah, that was like a sleeper cell.
Yeah, that was like, what?
Last question, and we'll move on to.
A comment,
Wait.
actually, when you're ready.
Okay.
You talk about taking it out. You're obviously Kyle running around town, doing lots of videos. You've got an enormous amount of service work that you're putting into make that happen. Maybe it's not $4, maybe it's $6. Have you looked at how portions of that as crowdsourced or creating avenues for the businesses to input and change and update their own information can lower that threshold so that the startup isn't quite so.
Yeah, that's a totally logical conclusion, but remember what I said at the beginning, that restaurant owners are really challenging to work with. You cannot expect even 10%. If you said, okay, everyone can log in and update their own information, go for it. Less than 10% would. They're just so busy. They need somebody to walk in and do it. And then the risk is, if you back off and say, okay, everyone fends for themselves, the quality will be all over the place. So until there's a content management system out there that's like 10 times more awesome than WordPress, like the quality would suffer. It would just be hard to manage. And I think that the quality is key. Just like back with the restaurants and the menus, I made sure everyone looked the same. I took a lot of care into kind of editing some menus too to make them look good, because the content has to be good, and you can't have pockets missing. We're working on that, but we'll be looking for ways to make it more efficient. I think the best opportunity we have is to partner with schools to make it a learning experience for students to kind of use that resource to do a lot of work for a low amount of money, honestly. But universities should be behind it. because it's a mix of technology, media, communications, business development. It's a nice little multidisciplinary project. And your last, what?
Yeah, I'm Chris's partner, Mary Fisher, and I am a bona fide perfectionist. And I found that by working with this group and Chris is that one thing I learned, and this applies to all startups, it doesn't have to be perfect before launch. Move forward, go faster, get it out there. You're going to have bumps, you're going to have mistakes, but with Guru and any of the other products that we had, what was the most important thing was that momentum. Just get it out there, get it going. Because if I started Guru, it'd probably still be in that stage where, well, I want to make sure those colors are perfect before I put it out there. And that's something I think is so valuable for any startup to just dive in. There's going to be mistakes. Just keep going with it. So I think that's pretty cool about the model.
Yeah, Reid Hoffman, the guy who founded LinkedIn, said if you're V1, if you're not embarrassed by your V1, you waited too long. And maybe I take that to the hill because Kyle's always like, no, let's just wait. And I'm like, no, go live, Wilhelm. So yeah, I need pushback, but that's an important piece. Thanks for pointing that out. So let's do a little roundup. If I call on you and you want to share, please come up and we'll do a quick Q&A. If you want to defer, you can. I'm going to start with you, Monique. So,
I had too much fun at Walnut St Labs, right?
Bombin, let's see. Cast this down. So, what is Bonbids?
Okay.
This is Monique Charoux.
Yeah. And I did a demo here. So Bonbids is a fundraising penny auction site. So we do penny auctions online and using your mobile phone. And we put up items for auction starting at a penny. And you bid on them using your phone, and each bid costs $1. And then there's a countdown timer, and you can win great items for not a lot of money, and we raise money for non-for-profits. So we wanted to test this out, test all kinds of things, how people react, how people interact with the site. So we came to Walnut St Lab, and they were kind enough to help us organize it and also run it. And we learned so much. I mean, I really emphasize that you should come and try your product and see where people get stuck and what happens.
I'm showing this screen.
Yeah.
So it's actually
it's not
like,
showing up there, but
oh, because I flipped over to YouTube. So,
there we are.
I wanted to show the app
Yeah.
interface so they really understood that it's a game.
Yeah, so it's like a game. And then after we finished it, we went back to the shop, and a lot of things that we saw, like people at the end, we asked them questions, and they gave us very simple answers, but the answers were key, to how we fixed the site.
So since that was like 3 months ago, what have you been doing since?
So we went back, we identified 3, let's call them issues that people had during the playing of this game. And so we went back to the shop and we're fixing them, and we're doing another demo with the chamber, actually, the Greater Westchester Chamber of Commerce. We're going to do one for the public library here. And that's the next stage.
And what was the motivation for creating the app?
So Bonbids is a cause marketing firm. So we help non-for-profits raise money through restaurants and merchants, but we give the merchants a marketing ROI, a return on their investment. We're able to show to them who was interested in their product. We distribute coupons to these people, and we're able to track them by email, and we have them in our database. So for a merchant who donates something to a non-for-profit, they actually get a marketing return on that donation. They're able to benefit from it. And that's what.
So for Kyle and Mike, you guys covered that event, and you got all the merchants, and people had a good time. It'd be easy for Monique to say everyone had time, but can you guys maybe share an anecdote about the gamification of like competing and then winning? There was a
Oh,
lot
it
of-
was a lot of fun. I think everyone that was there that night had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think Jamelli, who was also one of our clients, he showed up, and I think having him there also,
Yes.
people, like, I noticed that he was the only one of the people that showed up, and his was the one that went astronomically further than all the other ones. But it was a lot of fun. The
Yeah.
competition part, like, you'd get real close and someone would steal it away, and it was a lot of fun.
I like all the bantering back and forth. People were like,
Goading each other.
Yeah, you use a leaderboard to kind of show everybody what's happening in real time in
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you also are doing remote, the ability to remotely participate.
So you can bid at the auction itself, so at an event, but you can also bid from home. And then what we're also bringing in is that you can text the person and tell them this auction is started. Because it has a countdown timer, so it's a very kind of pressure cooker kind of auction environment. Yes. So there's this mobile phone, there's the online, and then there's the messaging that occurs.
And you're not a software engineer by training.
No.
So great story of having the idea and finding the resources.
And very different, that's actually the hard part. Really finding the people to build it was the hardest part. And I work now with a great group in Philadelphia called Jarvis. I don't know if anyone knows them, Jarvis Innovation. They're great, and they do all my development. And that's a big step.
All right. Well, do you have any questions for Monique?
Just one quick question. How did you, when you got the feedback, how did you actually, what's the system that you used to gather?
Well, you know, what I think is really interesting is people tell you feedback in a very kind of like relaxed, like something like, oh gosh, this could go on forever. Someone said that, this could go on forever. And that was like, I have to do something about that, you know, and then I found the solution. But they don't tell you, you have to fix it this way. They just tell you what they feel.
Did you get the feedback here?
Yeah, here.
So just was like live, just
They would
interactive?
say, oh
Okay.
yeah, this,
Okay.
and then you have to write it, you know, think about it.
Question. I mean, I guess this probably falls in the area of what we call social entrepreneurship. Would this be self-sustaining in terms of, I would say, operating it over time, or do you expect it to also, do you expect to get grants and stuff to keep it running and growing?
Can you talk about the business model?
The business model for this, I guess.
Well, we actually make money depending on how much money how many bids we sell. So when people are bidding, we take a percentage of the bid price.
So do you expect this to be sort of profitable, at the very least sustaining?
Yes, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you.
Bondbiz.com for Matic.
I emailed you a PDF if you could.
What is that? Mojo PF? All right, so Patrick Miller, Andrew Schwab.
You're at the website, but I emailed you a PDF.
Oh, PDF. Let's see. Can you Chromecast the PDF?
Or just file open. Chromecast is easier than I can figure out how to Chromecast from my Mac. Do it from my Yeah, thanks.
Oh, here it is.
I can start talking.
Yeah, go for it.
Break the silence there. So, Formatic, we are a company that's focusing on making our clients' forms more effective. And talking about focus, Chris was talking earlier saying, what do you do when you have a startup? You want to focus on something where other people are stumbling or having issues, and take that and work with it. So we are focusing especially on marketing forms. So anybody who's done any online marketing, you know people spend millions of dollars with Google and Facebook and on search engine optimization, things like that, trying to drive eyeballs to the websites. So you have this massive amount of stuff going into the wide end of the sales funnel, and then it hits your website, and people say, wow, what awesome forms, or maybe not. So what we do is we provide analytics behind those forms to tell you how your clients are behaving on those pages. Okay, so it's not just looking at what the entries are, it's looking at their behavior. And And so that can give you really useful information to optimize that. This is like the core of what we're doing. So as an example, some very, very simple examples, if you have 5 or 6 questions there and you're trying to qualify who is this person coming in, should I spend any more time on them, or should I register them for my event, or should I let them download my white paper? You know, you've usually got 5 or 6 questions there. Maybe they're going through in a sequence you don't expect. So maybe they're answering the questions 1, 2, 6, 5, 4, 3, something like that. That would tell you something simple. Resequence it, it'll be a smoother experience for them. Or maybe people are dithering on a particular question and going back multiple times and changing their answer. More useful information. Or maybe there's a really high abandon rate on question 4. Right, so we can capture all that stuff in one go and help people optimize that. And classically, the abandonment rate on these forms is like 90% or above, which in some ways doesn't make sense. It's like this really ugly secret of online marketing. You spend, and I have people who I know personally who are spending $1 million a year in their business on Google AdWords, and they're experiencing 95% abandon. And they say, why are people clicking if they're going to abandon? And the answer is, it's probably your form which is causing that. So if I can even take you from a 95% abandon rate to a 90% abandon rate, I'm doubling your throughput of leads. That's really interesting. That's really interesting to a marketer. Right, so it still looks ugly, but it looks a nicer shade of ugly. And it's a very strong ROI, very strong ROI. So that's the first level. The next level is, you know, if you guys think about how you use forms, the reasons why you bail out, it's typically either because it's too complex, right? You know, you kind of get into it, it's like, oh, enough, I'm out. Or it's asking you for information that you don't want to volunteer, right? So it's somewhere in those spaces. That's what we're hearing anecdotally and seeing in the data. And we also have this ability, once we start modeling people's behavior, to engage with them actively. So if we see your probability of abandoning start to rise, but we still need to ask this question because it's important, then we could do something like launch a live chat session exactly at that moment. So don't spam you with chat as soon as you hit the form, but engage with you when you need it. Or if it's like a consumer application, if it looks like you're getting wobbly, like Chris is going through the form and he's like, enough. If you complete this today, 10% off. And then get them across the finish line. So again, those things are really good for marketers.
So the geeky exciting part, I'm the engineering side versus the marketing side, so I can talk about the geeky stuff. But what's really cool is with the predictive analytics and all the big data, cool stuff we're doing behind the scenes, what this boils down to is as people are filling out your form, we can tell whether or not they're likely to abandon your form based on behavior. And so as soon as we detect that, that's when we can engage these events. We can give them hints, tips, maybe a coupon, and maybe reserve that last minute opportunity when we know you're a high profile or high value prospect, then pop up in a live chat. Because if you happen to be regionally focused and somebody from Europe is hitting your form, you don't want to be sending a live chat there because that costs you real money, right? So this is a way to optimize that, really reduce cost, and really engage people that you know have been profiled to be high value prospects.
Can you talk about the Westchester University forum, one of those first tests that you did? Because that's really concrete, the innovation test that the students were filling out.
Sure. This is actually the first proof of concept we did with the university, and they ran a program for students to apply for what they call an appathon. It's like a hackathon, suggest an idea for an app, and the best top couple people that were voted on get funding and resources, stuff like that. One of the questions they asked in the forum was for students to self-rate their technical ability. So what's your skill level? Am I beginner, intermediate, high? That seems, nonchalant, whatever. It turned out to be the most significant intimidation factor that caused people to abandon the form. And when we looked at it and diagnosed all the statistics, they had no idea that people were being that intimidated. Is it going to affect my eligibility? How are you going to be using this information? Do I want people to, are you going to know that I've rated myself higher than I am? It just was all sorts of in people's heads. And it turns out at the end that it was really non-critical information to be collecting anyway. Why even ask that question? And so it was a profound discovery in that pilot to say, well, that's the type of question that we really don't even need to ask up front. Maybe we ask that later after we've selected finalists, and all of a sudden the intimidation factor is not a problem. So it was a really, really big eye opener.
Yeah, it's profound to them, but also posits your value, because before now it was, did the form work or not?
Right.
If it doesn't work, let's compare it to another and do an A/B test. But it never goes deep into the specific form fields. which is like a new frontier.
Exactly, and let me real quick kind of point that and also go back to something you said before, actually what Mary said about getting momentum, getting things moving forward. I have recently, meaning the last 30 years, become a strong supporter of if you're a startup, socialize your idea to the nth degree to make sure that you're on track, that you don't, live in your own universe and go down a path that's wrong. And so as a result, we've only been operating this company since the top of this year. So not even 2 quarters under our belt, we already have paying customers. Pretty exciting. We decided we're going to spend the money up front, we're going to go to TechCrunch, New York. We decided that a month after starting the company. And the feedback we got was extraordinary. I'll summarize by saying what you were just highlighting is that Google and Yahoo came by and talked to us and said, whoa, you guys are filling a part of the funnel that we don't do. And now customers are start saying to us, interesting, you are Google Analytics for inside the web form. That's a win. Whenever people start to understand and start to connect those dots, that's the world that we're living in now, and it's a pretty exciting one.
So when Google's telling us they want to refer us to their agency business, we're pretty happy.
And so where did you guys meet?
We met
Right
here.
That was
Right
the
here.
question I had.
It's a great place to network. It's just kind of ironic because you need these hubs, because what's funny is that both Andrew and myself have had a kid in the same high school for the last 4 years, and our paths didn't cross. So
Didn't know that.
there we go.
Yeah.
We meet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty cool.
And Andrew is key to this place being open, the first person I reached out to when I was considering opening up. And Patrick's done a lot to help with tech jobs, opening it up to Chatham Financial, where you were CTO recently, and in general connecting with the greater Philadelphia scene, so thanks. So what's the next big thing on the horizon? And then we'll see who else we got.
I think it's really focused, right? So there are lots of exciting things going on for us, but we need to build our customer base. And so we've got a great sales pipeline. We need to convert those guys, like it's part of what we do. But we need to convert those guys, get really happy customers, and just keep on listening to what the market wants and build that.
Go ahead.
Who are your customers? I'm curious who you.
Right here.
You can talk to the.
Well, no, I meant like as in going forward.
Sure. What I love to tell people a story is whenever I had a minimum viable product, I went and did 5 demos and I signed 5 pilots. I've never experienced that in my life before, so the success out of the gate was pretty awesome. Who are the customers now? Well, Westchester University and iPipeline, who we also kind of connected through here. We got our first signed customer, which was a web lead. What we did is I contacted a blogger I knew in the Midwest, who's a technical writer, and I said, hey man, I think this is something you should be interested in. I found a relevant blog on his site. I said, are you interested in it? He got so excited, he wrote a technical review of our product, and so that's money, right? To have somebody else talking about your service. Then we socialized that blog everywhere, and from that we started getting web leads, people saying, boy, do I need this. And the very first one we got contacted us on a Wednesday night, wanted a demo Thursday morning, by Thursday afternoon they signed. Right, so our customers right now are kind of all over the place as we're only starting to learn what some of those trends look like. But again, for only being 2 quarters old, pretty awesome place.
What do you do with Groupon?
So Groupon is looking at using our tech, and we've actually just got the paperwork in the email this morning for them to sign.
This was going on over the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's why.
They're going to be using it to look at the behavioral profiles of people that go through the Groupon checkout to build stuff and to give them an idea of how to enhance that process, and also how to profile people to determine that they're high value. They're likely to succeed. How can we incentivize to move them to the next step?
But again, focus is going to be important for us because we've had interest from Google, from Yahoo, from people like Concur. We've had interest from large insurance companies. A chunk of this coming through people at TechCrunch, Groupon, other large folks, but also the other end of the spectrum, small businesses. You'd be surprised how many small businesses out there who have a massive, massive ad spend because they have churn in their base. So people that you wouldn't expect are spending $100,000 a year or more on advertising just for their business.
Which I think is because each transaction to them is so valuable. They feel like, well, if 95% abandonment rate's the norm, then I have to allocate gigantic amounts of marketing money in order to feed my pipeline. It's a mentality thing that we are seeking to help to shift, because smarter marketing dollars means less wasted, ad clicks. You can definitely profile your people and target them and spend smarter.
I know some marketing research firms.
Okay.
They do some of this internally, and they're very quiet about it. They only share it with their client base. Most of it is very highly skilled people who have lots of experience. It's like, who's the best copywriter? That they write those forms and they work through those forms and they analyze where the abandons are as a basic group, and they do that internally. Have you thought about stretching out into that marketing research community at all?
So what's out there currently is very interesting, because for decades there have been usability labs and the two-way mirrors. Right now there are things like eyeball monitors. They'll tell you what's going on. There are heat maps out there, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with all these terms, but you can see all these things happening. What's different about Formatic is that it's simple and it's actionable. Right? So it's much more difficult, for example, to decode the data on a heat map and see exactly what's going on. With Formatic, you can see very clearly, here are your behavioral issues, and through the API, you can take action on that very quickly. So it allows you to get a composite view of it rather than a very focused view. Similar challenge with A/B testing is that A/B testing, if anyone's done that, it's the idea, do I like this or do I like this? You'd like this one? Okay, let's make a change. Do I like this or like this? And you kind of work through a tree. It's actually, it looks from the outside like it's highly objective. It's more subjective, because if you're really to take an evolutionary approach using A/B testing, you have to test all your variables. Okay? So even on a simple form, you might have 100 variables. If you A/B test all of those, all of a sudden it gets very, very expensive. Right? So Formatic allows you to do a snapshot of what's going on, multivariable, and look and see what's going on behind that. So we have talked to, so there's a user experience psychology consulting firm we ran into out on the West Coast. They do some great work, and they're really interested in talking to us because we give that composite view. And so they say you can actually read more of the behavior from this because you're looking at multiple variables than you can with A/B testing, where you have to really tease it out from massive data. So yeah, but it's an interesting field. A number of different ways to do that.
So that group actually expressed interest in doing a joint white paper with us, with some machine learning technology that we're working on to help really churn through unique identification of trends and demographics based on our data.
But the short piece of that is this is more actionable. That's why people like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are not going to get to any additional ones, but I can make up to any ones next week. Thank you guys for chatting. Monique, thank you. Thanks for listening to me. And I hope to see you next week and the week after and the Night Owls. So thanks a lot. See you. Have a great day.